Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Anyway, you can look back at the events of this first week of the new year on tarpley.net. Brian Ross yesterday evening concluded that ABC news segment reminding people that John F. Kennedy, had fired Allen Dulles. The Dulles brothers, of course, top officials, top operatives of that secret government. And what were they? Wall Street lawyers. What is Allen Dulles, the founder of the modern CIA in the 1950s? The CIA that we have today goes back to this, also to Donovan. What were they? Wall Street lawyers. Get the picture? Wall Street, Wall Street, Wall Street. It's not an independent force. It's not something like the KGB that takes on a life of its own. It's an emanation of Wall Street. Let's just give a historical sketch, because some people now are confronted with this idea of the rogue network, the deep state, the invisible government, shadow government, parallel government. Senator Inouye had mentioned this back during Iran-Contra in the 1980s. Let's give a quick historical sketch. Maybe we can put two segments and try to do it. Back in the colonial, in the first decades of U.S. independence after 1783, we've got essentially a rogue network that revolves around Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr, arch traitor, satanic individual, agent of Jeremy Bentham and the British Empire forces of Lord Shelburne in London. Aaron Burr's number one disciple, Andrew Jackson. So in the first couple of decades, the big idea is to try to have rebellions, coups d'etats, and secessionism, that pesky word once again, secessionism, the slogan of every traitor that we've ever had. Aaron Burr tries to secede, right? He tries to take out the whole southern block of states with the help of Andrew Jackson. Their angle on Wall Street, of course, is Martin Van Buren and his machine in New York City and in Albany. You've also got sort of secret government phenomena under Polk, getting the United States into the Mexican War. You can read about that in my 9/11 Synthetic Terror Made in USA. During this time, you've also got assassinations. These are generally done more or less directly from London. William Henry Harrison and Zachary Taylor, two leading Whigs, anti-Jacksonians. Everybody good in this period is anti-Jacksonian. They are rubbed out. The other big issue, of course, is in order to break up the United States, you've got to destroy the Hamilton First Bank of the United States and then the Henry Clay-inspired Second Bank of the United States. And this is because if you don't have the Bank of the United States, then you are at the mercy of London pulling the plug on your currency and causing a tremendous financial panic. And this is blocked as long as the Bank of the United States exists. And then when traitorous Andrew Jackson destroys the Bank of the United States, what happens then immediately? The panic of 1837, many states go bankrupt, economic development aborted, the whole thing goes downhill towards what? Towards secessionism and civil war. And remember that the project of Jefferson Davis, Lee, Jackson, and the rest of these people is to become a satellite of the British Empire, that is to say a sub-empire, a satrapy of London with a slave empire in the southern states and the Caribbean. So whatever romantic illusions about these people go on in people's minds, this was a project of London, specifically of Lord Palmerston, Lord John Russell, and the rest of them. And the big issue, the gamble at Antietam and Gettysburg was, would the British come in to support the Confederacy? All right. During the 1870s, 1880s, you've also got continuous assassinations. Obviously, the Lincoln one, ordered directly from London with the help of the Confederate intelligence agencies set up in St. Anthony's Hall there in Canada. Garfield, the same story. The idea of bringing the planter aristocracy slave drivers together with the Hudson Valley, New York City financiers is the recurring one, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the birth of the modern secret government, 1895, London and J.P. Morgan, their man in Manhattan, taking the place of Augustus Belmont, who had been there before. Grover Cleveland is the president. London and Morgan attacked the gold backing of the United States dollar, and they forced Grover Cleveland to capitulate. He didn't have to capitulate. He could have slapped on currency controls, exchange controls. He could have created a greenback system the way Lincoln did, which worked very, very well. But Grover Cleveland chose to impose the cross of gold at that point, or it had been imposed with the Coin Act and the Specie Resumption Act back in the 1870s. Grover Cleveland at that point capitulates. He surrenders United States financial sovereignty to Morgan and London, and that is the root of the modern secret government. And, of course, the power relations that are created in 1895 with Grover Cleveland capitulating to Morgan and London are the ones that are then enshrined in law, consolidated and formalized in the Federal Reserve Act under Woodrow Wilson a little bit later. However, there's still another issue, which is the question of imperialism. By the 1890s, the British are very weak east of India. They're concerned about the Philippines, the collapsing Spanish Empire. The British don't want Germany to get the Philippines, so the British wish to embroil the United States in war with Spain so that these various possessions of the Spanish will not fall into the hands of Germany. That is the blowing up of the Maine, another, again, Wall Street, City of London operation. When President McKinley shows that he is not enthusiastic about imperialism, and this is typical of the old guard Republicans, McKinley and also Taft, they don't like this idea of a world empire. They're conservatives as compared to these neocons of today. Kipling writes this thing, take up the white man's burden. What that means is you've got to become a sub-empire for us. Of course, McKinley is assassinated. The killer is somebody who comes from the Emma Goldman settlement house. Emma Goldman had been a British agent in Poland, and then she's transferred over to the United States. So the British inspire the death of McKinley. Who do we get? Theodore Roosevelt, a mental deficient. Spring Rice, the British ambassador to London, had written that this guy has the mentality of a 6-year-old boy. That's being generous. But Theodore Roosevelt represents a personal union. He marries the daughter of Bullock. Bullock was the head of the Confederate Secret Service, the guy who created the Alabama, the Shenandoah, and the rest of them, the commerce raiders from London. So on the one side, we've got the Confederate Secret Service. On the other side, we've got the patroons and Wall Street forces of the Hudson River Valley. And Theodore Roosevelt, the product of this, he comes together in this and then becomes president, even though he's a mental deficient. He is, of course, a racist. He is an imperialist, and he believes in the myth of the Anglo-Saxon master race. Actually exchanges letters with Edward VII, this evil demiurge of the British Empire at the time. So with that, then we get the entire imperialist exercise. And we'll be back in a minute with another installment in the history of the Rogue Network.